Lessons Not Yet Learnt is a podcast that uncovers the costly mistakes that businesses keep making and how to finally move past them. Through storytelling, candid conversations, and expert perspectives, I'm on a mission to challenge outdated thinking, bring those overlooked lessons to the surface, and drive meaningful change, one story at a time. Hi, welcome to this bonus episode of Lessons Not Yet Learnt. I'm your host, Kiran Kachela. In the last episode, I touched on the most talked about technology of our time, AI, artificial intelligence. And I talked about this race to be seen to be doing it. But successful adoption actually relies on something far more complex than the technology itself. It relies on human psychology. Psychological barriers are often the biggest contributor to resistance in AI adoption. Everyone wants to declare that they are using AI, but there's a huge immense pressure to make it work. And actually what it really relies on is people to understand it, people to trust it, and people to adopt it. So in this episode, I'm really keen to explore what are some of those psychological barriers that are impacting the adoption of AI and what we can actually do about it. So, one of the psychological barriers to AI adoption is the black box problem. And this is this lack of explainability. People not understanding what AI is doing in the background to actually come to the answer. So because people don't understand it and they can't explain it, they become resistant to it. It's a bit like if we were sat in an autonomous car and all of a sudden the car decides to just stop. We would not really trust it. We wouldn't understand why the car had stopped. But actually, if it did explain that the car has stopped because there's an obstruction on the road a mile further down, that would help us to understand why the car was stopping, and it would help us to trust the solution better. So explainability is really, really key. The second psychological barrier is the emotionless barrier. Now, AI by nature is very logical, quite black and white, it's rule-based, it's data-driven, and it's devoid of that human warmth. We need to understand that actually this acts as a significant barrier because as humans, we connect better with emotion. Think about the early days of voice assistants. They used to be very cold. You'd get very straight answers with no emotion. Whereas today, if you turned on your Amazon Alexa and asked it a question, Alexa will now respond with prompts like, And it's those short pauses and those human-like acknowledgements that help break down barriers. It starts to build a bit of connection with the human. The third psychological barrier is this fear of losing control or autonomy. Now, people resist to giving up the steering wheel. I'm one of them. I need to feel like I'm in control. And if I'm letting go, I struggle. So many people will see that as a barrier. They will resist AI because they feel like they have no control. And so the strategy isn't about removing humans completely from the process. It's actually offering manual overrides. It's putting humans in the loop. I think that's so key. An example of that is back at my house, I have a Nest thermostat and it does learn what I like. It learns my preferences around temperature and different times of days. But what I love about it is that it does have the manual override option. So I know that if I want to take control and if I need to take control, I can. And I think that's something that we need to think of as a strategy when implementing AI. The fourth psychological barrier is flexibility. Many people see AI as black and white, okay? And so they feel that it doesn't necessarily reflect their personal, unique requirements and circumstances. They see it as quite a generic tool that anybody could interface with, but it doesn't really understand my unique requirements. And so I think personalization is very, very important. If you switch on your Netflix tomorrow and you take a look at, what to watch, it says things on there like, based on what you watched last time. So it's showing you that level of personalization, and it's doing the explainability. It's explaining to you how it's got to that answer. So it's this combination of explainability with personalization. And last but not least is the fear of losing their jobs. And we know that this is a barrier in AI adoption. This is something that is very real. Jobs are changing, jobs are evolving as a result of the introduction of AI. And I think the key here is, as I said earlier, this isn't necessarily about removing humans from the process. It's about adapting and evolving their roles. And so as part of the rollout, we need to be clear that AI is on their side and not be seen as a threat. So there are a few CI fixes from today's episode. Firstly, lead with humans. Human first. If you work backwards from the human, you can start to think about what's in it for them and make sure that you're really understanding all of those psychological barriers and how you can combat those for those audiences that you're working with. The second one is design. It's about the design for explainability and personalization and transparency. So when you're designing your solutions, think about how you actually explain what the system's doing, what you need to make visible, and how you make it not feel so generic and make it feel personal. And last but not least, make sure humans are in the loop. Thank you for joining today's episode, and I look forward to seeing you on the next one.